Okay, so welcome to another day of doing stuff for our Smokin Joe amp kit. I have put the wires on the circuit board. I'm still awaiting that mythical resistor that goes here. I'm trying not to... I don't want to do too much where I'm going to have trouble putting that resistor in, but I don't want to stop the process of making this amp. So anyway, now that we've got the wires on, the wires that all come to the back of the board, on our schematic, this is all the bottom line stuff, or the stuff that comes from the top line, out. But everything that's going down to the tubes, I have coming out of the lower part of the board on this side. The stuff that's going to the switches and whatnot on the face of the amp are on top of the board coming out there. And then these bare wires, these are the four earths that we see. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 of those. Those are going to be grounded to the brass plate. So at this point I'm considering my circuit board to be pretty much done, but I want to check all of the underneath connections just to make sure that I did them correctly. So on the diagram we can see the first connection between, there should be a connection between the 40 microfarad capacitors. So we're going to just quick check that. Yes, there is. Looking down the line, I should have one from this 40 mic capacitor to the hole where the magic resistor goes. And okay, we are not beeping. So did I forget that one? It's not there. So if it's not there, that probably means I was intending to use the lead from the resistor to put that in. So I need to make sure that that happens. This one should be connected to here, and it is. Good. Okay. And we were cursed with the curse of the dead battery. Hooray for batteries. So anyway, back to what I was doing. I want to make sure that these under connections that need to be here are here. And it looks like I still have a couple of ones to do here because this 270, I need to make sure I've got a wire coming down from this 270 up here coming to the back. Those are not there yet, so we need to make sure we have those, because those are in our diagram. If it's in the diagram, it's got to be there. So we still have to do those two. Let's check on our resistors. I've got 1 meg goes to the tail of the 2.2. Beep, good there. Shouldn't beep there. These two should beep. Yep, 1 meg's connected to the head of the 1 meg. Hey, there we go. These two are connected end to end. They're supposed to be. Hey! Okay. So there might be another boo-boo on my part. Well, there's the connection. That should be the connection, right? That one. So is it just that my meter's being dumb? Yeah, my meter's just being squirrely. There's probably a little bit of rosin on there. Yeah, those are connected. We're okay there. Okay. Our 1 meg down here should be connected to that capacitor. That's good. And this 82 should be connected to that capacitor. This 100 should be connected to that capacitor. So these are just all the underneath connections that should be. So we still need to make sure that this gets connected to that with our resistor. I don't think our resistor is going to be long enough, so probably patch that in, and then I need to have wires that run from these 270Ks. I need to have wires that run from the 270Ks out to the back of the amp, or out to the back of the board. So we're getting close. Okay, so I have added my wires that I was missing. I neglected to catch the underboard wires that go from the 220K resistors down here to the tube sockets respectively. I have, put those in now, and then the bridge connection that runs between this resistor and this 40 mic cap, this bridge connection is for ground, a grounding connector. I have added that, and I have tested all of the other beneath the board connections for continuity. So we're good with the board. I really don't want to put it in until I have that resistor, and I'm going to deal with that. So I think what I'm going to do to make this evening's adventure worthwhile is I'm going to clean up and tidy up the power transformer leads that we will be and not be using. So the two that we will definitely be using are red, white. These are our main power leads. We will be using brown because that's our 120 volt in. The blue one is if you have high voltage in your place, 125. So we will not be using that one. So we will be using these three, and see, I have a stray. Okay, this red one is for the power transfer. That's for the output transformer. I don't want to get that one confused. So power transformer leads that we will not be using: blue, blue-red stripe, and the yellow pair here. So we have 2, 4, 6 wires that will not be used in this scenario. So we're going to shorten them, bind them, and tuck them out of the way. So what we'll do is we'll clip them a little shorter, put a little shrink wrap on them, shrink the shrink wrap, and then kind of stick them off the side. Okay, 6 individually shrink-wrapped wires, and then we'll put one big tubing over that and shrink-wrap them collectively. And I think at this point, it's still kind of warm, but I think I can tuck them. Oh yeah, see, we can tuck them down in the corner. Now they're out of the way. Now I've only got the leads left that I really need to deal with. I've got the red one for the power transformer, which is going to go on the board. I've got the brown one for the power on that's going to go to the switch. And I've got the other two here for the AC in. Awesome. That's a nice space saver. I'm happy the way that turned out. Okay, so come on guys, send me my resistor. We want to see this project work and catch fire and blow up, right? Because that's how everybody is. I did want to show you this wire though. Let's do a little camera adjust here. We don't need to reframe it. If you notice, the one thing I have not been including in the list of tools I recommended was a wire stripping tool, okay, We're gonna behave here. Focus, you camera. Come on, focus, focus. Let's try to zoom out. Maybe it'll focus. I wanted to show you. Can you focus on that? No, you can't. Can you focus on that? Okay, there, it can focus on that. This type of wire that they include with the kits actually does not require a wire stripper. You can actually, after you cut it to length, you can just pinch and push, and you can actually just push the wire back off of the insulation, and when you're done you can actually slide most of the insulation back. So you can do a 1/2 inch solder to the tube and then push it back so it's tight. Very, very neat kind of vintage style wire with the pushback insulation. Cool stuff. Oh, wait, if I give you a thumbs up, does that mean that's politically incorrect? Can I not do that anymore? That means something, doesn't it? You can't do anything. You give an okay sign and they yell at you, and you give a thumbs up and they yell at you. These new YouTube guidelines, man. I don't know. I'm just full of it. So, call it for now. When we get this other power resistor, we'll get that power resistor in. And then this is going to be kind of an adventure. I'll probably need to figure out how I can prop this board, like maybe flip this board and solder to the tubes. And then we'll have to flip it and manipulate it in. This is going to be tricky. This thing where we have the tubes, here, instead of down here where we had it on our combo model, that's going to make it a little trickier. But it's not like I'm not going to get it. It's just going to take a minute. Alright, see you next day. Okay, I've got the light shining on this. That's the circuit board kind of floating around. Or circuit board, eyelet board kind of floating there. And the reason it's floating is I decided to wire up the tube sockets. Do. I know, you probably want more light. Let's just put it this way. This was not fun. It wasn't fun at all. It's tight, everything's too close, it's a mess. Now, in retrospect, is there another way to do it? Maybe. Maybe next time I would put the wires on the tubes and then bring them up to the board instead. It's a thought. Trying to get the wire lengths as ideal as possible. It just really isn't that great. Getting a good soldering connection when working at that kind of wacky angle. Trying not to char the bejesus out of any of the wires back there while you're working on another one. Just not fun. And I still got to get that other resistor. So I think I can get this board to, so I can sit it and lay everything flat and solder that one piece in. And then we'll be able to set the back on the board, push it back in the amp. And as we do it, we have to be real gentle. Because remember, this is solid core wire. If you bend it too much, it breaks. And if it breaks, I cry. Okay, kids, well, we've made some more progress. After getting all of those wires attached to the circuit board, I placed the backing board on the circuit board, pressed it down very firmly in the amp, and prayed while I screwed it down that I didn't bust any of those wires loose off the sockets. I tested them a whole bunch of times to make sure they were soldered good, but this is solid core wire. Breaking a wire is possible. If I did break a wire, I'm going to have a lot of horrible, awful swear words to say afterwards, because that means I'm going to have to, to get the circuit board back up, I'm going to have to detach the grounds, detach the pots, and all of that stuff to get this thing to lift back out so I can resolder that. So that's really going to be bad. That's why I tried to check everything 5 times. The power leads go there. That's the red with white stripe. They're on both ends of the diodes there to supply the B+, or to supply the AC, which goes through the diodes through the resistor. The diodes will turn it into the B+, and then it goes through the 91 watt resistor and then past the filter caps, and you can see there on the first position that red lead is the output transformer. The other sides, the other 2 leads of the primary side of the output transformer, of course, are on our tube sockets on the flip. And then the output leads, I was debating, I could connect those to the jack here, but that resistor, the big missing resistor that's coming in the mail, goes right in there. And I have to really make sure I have enough real estate for that, because this is the pot switch thing. And, okay, so you can see how that goes in there. And there has to be enough real estate for a resistor that size. So we're going to have to try to, you know, back it up as far to the rear as we can and get it, you know, shoved over, kind of hovering over the caps there to make sure we got enough room for it. So at this point I've done pretty much all the work on this I can do right now. Could probably check for some shorts or whatnot, but I think we're okay for the moment. Oh, and then while we were waiting, I also labeled the tube sockets with both the American and European names. Did you know that EL84 is also a 6BQ5 and a 12AX7 is also ECC83? Well, of course you probably did. Maybe not. 6BQ5 was not nearly as popular in American amps as EL84 was in UK amps, like Marshall and Vox. 12AX7 is what we always called it here because we're just used to that, but I believe JJ Tube only uses the European names, to my knowledge, on most of their tubes, like ECC83 is common. Anyway, who gives a crap? Okay, well, it is Friday. The mailman is supposed to bring me my missing resistor on Monday, and this has to be playing a show on Wednesday. So I really didn't have time to screw around. So what we did tonight, just to be sure that we're ready to drop in our resistor, hook up our volume pot, and fire this thing up and rock and roll. So I went through tonight and tested all the tube sockets to their appropriate continuity points on the board. And obviously a meter probe won't fit in a tube socket hole very well. So you can take a little lead, that you clipped off, put it in a gator clip, and then clip that on your lead, and you can walk through and do a continuity check and verify that each one of those tube pins is going to the correct place on the board. And I did that, and it looks good to me. Everything did what it was supposed to do, and I was able to check like a few of these, like if I was checking, we'll say at this point, pin 8 goes to the master volume up here, right? So I can check that, and then if I leave it on the master volume and check pin 2, I should get 1.5K resistance. So I can really kind of verify all the tube sockets pretty much by what resistance I should be, and the filaments, you know, should give you approximately 0, maybe a tenth of an ohm or an ohm or something like that. But I'm really pretty darn sure that after we get that missing resistor in here, we're going to be able to put the tubes in and be ready to rock. I do have a backup plan if for whatever reason the mailman loses it. The specified value is 130 ohms. I have a 150 ohm, which is close enough. But if I parallel that with I believe it's a 1K, it's either a 1K or 1.5K, I think it's a 1K, it will actually put me at like 130.1 ohms, so it'll put me right on the mark. And I think the one that is actually in my red amp, which is over there, hanging out, waiting for somebody to play some rock and roll. Focus, there you go. So that amp's hanging out, waiting for somebody to play some rock and roll on it. I think that's actually a 135 ohm. It's just what was available, you know. There are some substitutions if we're, you know, going 5-10 ohms in one direction. No big deal. To go 20 ohms is a little much, so we can probably bleed that off by paralleling a higher value resistor just to drop the resistance just a little bit. Okay, see you in a few days. Okay, so today is Saturday, and the Postman did bring me the missing resistor. We were looking on our layout diagram. I believe it says a 130 at 10 watts, and I know my other amp kit actually used a 15 watt 135, so that's what I've been shipped here. That's fine, that'll work. And the magic trick here is going to be to manipulate it into the proper position, because it's going to go right about there, which is potentially going to bash into the pot that also goes in that general position. So if I put that pot in there like so, now we're tight, let's put it that way. So I could probably, if I can scoot it back and or up and over, but no matter how we do this, it's going to be a bit of a stink bomb, so we're going to figure that out and then we'll come right back. Okay, so using some fairly rigid wire, this is now back and up, so it gets air on all sides, and it's back significantly farther so that the volume pot here has space. I like this better than the way I did mine, and this is all sort of due to doing the pyramid of capacitors. That made more room. The wire that comes down here, I made sure I've got insulation, shrink wrap, all of that stuff on this resistor here, so it can't ground out on anything. And I'm using a more rigid wire to extend the leads and just make it less likely to flex and bodge out. So now I have two leads that go to the volume pot, and we need to hook the volume pot to the tone pot. We're going to do all of that stuff. I did hook up the output jack, which is the tip, the green wire to tip, and the black wire to ground. So now we're going to take these two leads and volume pot, tone pot, volume pot, and we got our little capacitor jumper there, so yippee. Okay, so that went okay. Now we needed to hook up the volume switch, so we have the volume, it goes down to this cap and to that cap. From this point over to the tone knob, and from this point to the tone knob it goes through a 500 picofarad capacitor. So that's all been done. Just to avoid any possible goofs, I do wrap my capacitor leads there just in sleeving from the wire that I've already taken off, so we're good. And then the third leg of the volume pot right there goes to ground, so I've got that grounded to the brass plate. So the only thing left to do is to turn the power on and maybe put some tubes in it. On the switch there, this one transformer lead for 120 volt will be on one side, and the other side will be the fuse. I'm going to do a little bit of shrink wrappery here, because this is that can potentially be hot wires to touch, and we don't want to burn our hands or shock ourselves or anything stupid like that. So we'll do that, and then we're ready to kick the tires and light the fires. Okay, so rather than a conventional on-off switch, this particular amp has the on-off switch mounted on the volume here, or on the back of the volume. So the one is going to be the brown lead from the transformer, the other is going to go to this fuse. I try to do some little shrink wrappy here, make it nice and neat, and all that jazz. So I think we're cool. Should be ready to turn it on and see if it explodes, and then put some tubes in it and see if it plays rock and roll. Okay, so here we go. I got it plugged in. There's our master volume. Turn that down to nothing. Our tone's somewhere in the middle, it doesn't really matter, but here's the on switch. I'm gonna have to grip this pretty tight because I don't have a knob on it, but click, there we go. We got a power light illuminating bright, and we didn't blow a fuse and nothing happened. That's what we want, nothing to happen, right? Cool. So we'll put some fuses in it, or put some tubes in it, and then go get the sacrificial speaker and see what happens. Okay, so we put vacuum tubes in it, and I plugged an 8-ohm speaker into it, one that we usually use as our bench tester. I've got the volume down to nothing, tones in the middle-ish something, and let's turn it on and see if we have a problem. Okay, we got a power light, and the power light's staying on, so that means we have not blown a fuse. Yay! And we wait and look for filament glow. I see filament glow in all tubes. That's great. And let's just shut the light down here, and we'll look for any kind of yucky red plating kind of thing going on. Looks like normal tube glow to me. Suppose we should see if we have any sound. Tube glow. We'll zoom in on that for you. Can we? Will it zoom? I can't see anything. There you go. There's some power tube glow. Alright. So obviously we haven't heard any sound. I haven't heard any sound either. We're doing this at the same time. So, but I did feel a little bit of a, what would be a hum from the speaker. Oh yeah, if I turn the gain all the way up, I got just that wee bit of hiss. So I have a feeling we're working. Let's plug in our lead jack here, put the master halfway. Oh yeah, we're working. Let's try our tone this way. Bassy tone. Trebly tone. Yeah, so it worked the first time. Kind of like my last one did. I don't have any squinchy pots or anything. So let's just get a guitar and we'll play it on a bench here for a minute, and then we will put it in its cabinet and finish it up. Now, I don't want to sit here and give everybody the impression that if you just, you know, that this is easy. I've had 2 of these things work the first time for me, but this is not my first rodeo. It's not my 40th rodeo either, but the first kit I built, I made a few significant mistakes that prevented it from working, and this is probably 10 years ago. And I had a technician help me find my mistake, and that worked out. And the second amplifier I built worked with a few minor glitches, and the same technician was able to help me out there to resolve those few minor glitches. The third kit I built, everything worked completely, and the fourth kit and the fifth kit, etc. Everything has been just fine since. So it does take some practice and some time, but checking your connections as many times as Chuck Norris checks for bad guys, it's a good thing to do. Alright, let's go get the guitar. Okay, so we've got the guitar and we've got a 12-inch speaker sitting on the floor, so how good is it going to sound? Let's turn our tone down a little bit. That's got a lot of volume. Oh yes, that's what this amp is kind of famous for, being loud as crap. So let's turn our volume up to full blast, and that's the rock and roll sound we were looking for. so it's working. It's working good. So we're gonna put it in the cabinet and try to finish it off here. Okay, so I made a few executive decisions here. The knobs that they shipped me with this were black knobs that have the gold cap. They are Marshall style knobs, and since the piping is white and the faceplate is silver, we opted not for gold on this because it just made more sense. It just looks right. I opted to dig into my stash and get the white chicken head knobs. The speaker in our 10-inch cabinet below is the Weber Alnico Silver 10, which is the 10-inch version of the Silver Bell speaker, Alnico magnet. It is essentially electrically speaker and everything the same animal as our red amp that sits next to it. So these are two brother and sister, basically, both built by me, and the head version has the tubes mounted, you know, vertically to the chassis, where the combo unit has them hanging down. So the tubes are vertical, but where they're mounted and whatnot is a little different. But anyway, I've got it cranked up on the moderate volume distortion sound that I like. We'll put a few chords on it and then call it a victory. There you go. It's all good. It's all working. Yeah, I know the lighting sucks. Tell me about it some other time. Thanks for watching. Things that we've learned from this build. If I had to do it over, I would put the wires on the sockets before putting the wires on the board, as opposed to the way I did it, where I put the wires on the board first. And I would remember to attach the knobs before putting it into the cabinet, because there's not a lot of real estate to work to get them tight. But other than that, we're good. Straightforward build, successful. Essentially everything is what you would get stock in the kit, with a few exceptions. Those little solder down tabs that I use to ground things around the power transformer. I bring in some of my own wire. These are Electro Harmonics tubes, just because I like them better than the stock tubes, and the chicken head knobs are my own stash there. So